everyone. I hope that you are all well and in good health, and I hope that you and your families are living good conditions. I would like first to start by thanking you all for having contacted me and asked me questions about the previous material. I'm happy that you are following and that you are asking questions and reading the material. Today we come to lecture number 8. Lecture number 8 is going to be a continuation of our discussion of the sonnet types. If you still remember what we did last time, we discussed Shakespeare's sonnet, which was Sonnet 18, and we said that it was one of Shakespeare's most famous works. And at the end of the lecture, I promised that we will study another variety of the sonnet, and this variety is going to be the Italian sonnet. The Italian sonnet, as I said last time, and as I posted to you the structure of the sonnet, the Italian sonnet consists of two stanzas. One is known as the octave, and the octave has 8 lines, and the other one is the sestet, and it has 6 lines. Usually, the Italian sonnet discusses the problem in the octave and offers the solution in the sestet. The most common type of rhyme is A, B, B, A, B, B, A for the octave, C, D, E for the sestet, and sometimes C, D, E, D, C, E. However, today we are going to discuss a sonnet written by the famous romantic poet Percy Shelley, and the sonnet is supposed to be an Italian sonnet, but it has been described as an irregular sonnet because of its rhyme scheme, which is basically an irregular one. Our poem for today is Shelley's Ozymandias. Shelley lived in between 1792 and 1822. That is during the 18th century and the 19th century. This sonnet, which is described as an irregular sonnet, and also it has been described as a masterpiece, describes a theme which is not exactly what we expect to find in an Italian sonnet. I emphasized last time that sonnets, even in their very definition, are known as a poem of 18 lines, a love poem of 14 lines, following one of several set of rhyme schemes. So by the very definition, the sonnet consists of 14 lines, and it is basically about love. So this sonnet is not about love actually. It's about the consequences of the love of power. What happens when we fall in love with ourselves and with our arrogance. This kind of treatment that we have in the poem is really a proof that the English sonnet that was introduced to England and the Italian sonnet that was practiced by the English writers has been innovated in terms of theme and rhyme scheme. The innovation occurs because the sonnet is no longer a love poem. It could be about various topics and subjects. Ozymandias is a poem that talks about an Egyptian king. Let us read the poem and try to analyze it and try to understand what exactly the poet wants to communicate to the readers. I met a traveler from an antique land who said, "Two vast and trunkless legs of stone stand in the desert. Near them on the sand, half sunk a shattered visage lies, whose frown and wrinkled lip and the sneer of cold command Still that it's a sculptor, will those passions red, which yet survive, stamped on these lifeless things, the hand that mocked them and the heart that fed. And on the pedestal, these words appear. My name is Ozymandias, King of Kings. Look on my works, ye mighty, and despair. Nothing beside remains. Round the decay of that colossal wreck, boundless and bare, the lone and the level stands, stretched far away. I understand that you are first-year students and this is your first experience with literature, so I'll start the analysis step by step and I will try to simplify matters for you as much as I can. I will deal with you as beginners. If we go to the first line of the poem that was described as a timeless masterpiece. First of all, I want to interpret what that means. Timeless here means that it is a work of art that transcends time. It is suitable to be read by all types of readers at all times, and that's why we can call it timeless. Masterpiece, when you have a person who achieves a lot of things, but one achievement is seen as better than other achievements, we call it a masterpiece. So a writer's masterpiece is the best literary work a poet or a writer ever wrote. So describing Ozymandias as a masterpiece means that it is one of the best poems written by the poet Shelley. Now this poem has a story. It really imagines a meeting, you know what that means, between the narrator in the poem, the one who narrates the poem, and a traveler from the old times. And that's why in line 1 you have antique. Antique means old. So the narrator meets a traveler who describes a ruined statue. He saw it in the middle of the desert somewhere. So the description is really a meditation of the fragility of a human power and the effect of time. We notice that line 1 describes things we can learn from the antique world. And the antique world here is represented by a statue which is described by a narrator in the poem. And this statue describes a love of power and vanity and how this is going to have a bad end. Now let us see what the narrator says. Who said, "Two vast and trunkless legs of stone stand in the desert." So what do we have here? We have a statue and the legs and the trunk are separated. That is, the statue is broken. When you speak of the human body, you have the legs and you have the trunk. So the trunk here is separated from the legs, and you can see some fragments around the statue, and you can see that the statue is eroded by the sands of the desert. And instead of representing power and greatness, it represents decay. Half sunk, a shattered visage lies. Now, speaking of the head of the statue, the visage, and the visage represents facial expressions. The visage lies whose frown and wrinkled lip. Now the face shows a frown. A frown is the opposite of a smile. When we are happy, we smile. When we are sad, we frown. So there is a frown and the lip is wrinkled. There are wrinkles on the lip. and the sneer of cold command. You know, when someone sneers, it means that he smiles in a way that mocks something or makes fun of something. And the use of cold command, as I understand it here, people who are described as cold are the people who are in full control of their nerves. And usually this is a praised characteristic in a leader. For if you want to know more about the poem, it is believed that this poem is about an Egyptian king. Ozymandias is the Greek word for the Egyptian pharaoh, or what we call in Arabic Fir'aun, who used to live in a city known as Thebes, or as we call it in Arabic, Tiba. So this king has a cold command. Usually kings are supposed to be in full command of their nerves and to appear as bossy and at the same time indifferent. They should not show excitement or anger. So there is this kind of a sneer of cold command which is shown on the face of the statue. So the sculptor, the one who carves the statue, the sculptor is the artist who makes a statue or carves a statue, was good enough to show the passions on the face. And passions here refers to emotions. What kind of feelings this person had inside of him. This was reflected on his face, which yet survive. Now here I think the word survive is a key word. Notice that despite feelings of greatness and despite feelings of pomp and regale that we usually see when we meet kings or when we watch some kings on TV, we have to know that nobody survives and that death is inevitable. So no matter how great someone is, there is always the destructiveness of time. Time is going to destroy everyone, including the greatest kings who ever lived on earth. So here the word survive is really important. Now, we know that the sculptor here tried to show all the characteristics of greatness, but at the same time, who survived? Who really survived? Was it the king or was it the statue? And here there's a bit of similarity in themes between this poem and Shakespeare's Sonnet 18. We have seen some Shakespearean sonnets trying to speak about making someone eternal by writing literature. In Shakespeare's poem, the beloved is supposed to be eternal because her lover is going to write a poem about her, and she shall live forever because she was immortalized in his poem. Now, what's the connection between the statue and the sonnet? In Shakespeare's work, the poem is supposed to make the lady survive. Now here in our poem that talks about the famous Egyptian king who was supposedly Ramses II, Ozymandias, he was supposed to be immortalized by casting a statue for him. There is an artist who was supposed to cast a statue made of stone to immortalize the Egyptian pharaoh. The statue survived, but unfortunately everything around the statue is lifeless. The poem mentions the word lifeless, and when something is lifeless, it has no life. There are no signs of life. The hand that mocked them and the heart that fed. Now, the hand made the statue. And on the pedestal, these words appear. After making the statue And after having tried to show the facial expressions, which are really majestic, we have something written on the pedestal. And this thing is, my name is Ozymandias, King of Kings. Notice that this is a sign of megalomania. And I mean by megalomania, a person who is full of himself. He is a person who is really in love with himself. He is sort of mad, you know, because mania is madness. Megalomania is a person who sees himself probably larger than life. So he identifies himself according to what the narrator says in the poem, and he says, my name is Ozymandias, King of Kings. I am King of Kings. And what does he say there in the inscription? Nothing beside remains. It is a rule that everything is going to decay. Everything is going to come to an end. And this is what we call the collapse after greatness. The collapse after greatness. After we achieve greatness, we are definitely going to collapse. And this fact is irreversible. That is, it is a fixed fact. No one can change it. If we reach the peak, let us suppose that this is a curve. When we reach this peak, this part, it means that we have the falling slope. So the rising slope leads to the peak. And after the peak, we are going to have the falling slope. So it is one of the facts of life. Collapse is followed by, greatness is followed by collapse. Round the decay of that colossal wreck, boundless and bare. Now the surrounding of the statue is full of damaged things. It is boundless and bare. The lone and level stands stretched far, far away. So isn't it ironic that the king who represents regal and majestic pomp is alone and is sort of abandoned in the heart of the desert? I think it is. So we notice that the poem is a reminder for the powerful people. It reminds the powerful people who may wish to think that their power is immortal and that their power stays forever, that they are deceiving themselves. Because when you think that you are great and your greatness will survive and will remain forever, you are practicing what we call self-deception. Because life is a cycle, and definitely greatness will be followed by decay. So if we want to think about why the poem is irregular, I think of the rhyme scheme. You know, the rhyme scheme is regular if it follows the rhyme that I mentioned before. Since we are dealing with an Italian sonnet, we expect to have A, B, B, A, B, B, A, C, D, E, C, D, E. But what do we have here? If you look at land, this is A, stone, B, land and stand are the same, so A, B, A. And then stone and frown, usually they don't rhyme, but there is something we call poetic license. And poetic license allows the poet to break the rules of language, specifically pronunciation. So stone should rhyme with frown. It becomes A, B, A, B. And then command, like land, A. And read is C. Things, D. Fed, C. Appear, E. Kings, D. Despair, E. Decay, F. bear, E and F. So all in all, I have written here what rhyme scheme we have got here. We have A, B, A, B, A, C, D, C, E, D, E, F, E, F. This is an irregular rhyme scheme because if you remember the image that I posted, it shows the structure of the Italian sonnet and how the rhyme of the Italian sonnet is usually organized between the octave and the system. So what we have here is an irregular Italian sonnet, an irregular Italian sonnet. Okay, to make things very simple for you as beginners, I would like to sum up and tell you what exactly we have in the poem. We have a traveler who tells the poet that two huge stone legs stand in the desert. Near them on the sand lies a damaged stone head. Notice, why do you think it's the head which is damaged? The head is a symbol of pride. Usually the head is held high to show greatness. So the head is separated from the statue, and it lies in the sand. Near them on the sand lies a damaged stone head. The head is distinguished by a frown, as I said. The face is not smiley, it's frowning. Someone frowns. And a sneer. And a sneer is like an unkind smile, sort of smile, which the sculptor carved on the features of the face. Now, there is a kind of pedestal or a thing that holds the legs of the statue. Suppose that I have a statue. Here is the pedestal, and then you have the statue. And here, what is carved? There is something which is carved, and this thing is the following statement. My name is Ozymandias, King of Kings. Look on my work, ye mighty, and despair. The inscription on the pedestal is a kind of invitation for human beings, and these human beings are the ones who read the poem, or the people who are familiar with the story. It really motivates us to think about the nature of this life. Now, it seems that Ozymandias is communicating a message to the people. Look at me. Take me as an example. Remember that I was a great pharaoh, an Egyptian king who ruled with greatness and power. Look at me and despair. Despair means feel sad for something. Now, around the huge fragments stretches the empty desert. And in general, probably this is your first experience in talking about symbols in literature. Usually, the desert is a kind of universal symbol in literature where it represents infertility and hopelessness. The desert is a symbol of waste. So here we notice that the great Egyptian pharaoh is here, stretched out in the empty desert. So the vain boast was reduced to nothing. You know the word boast, B-O-A-S-T. It's not P, it's B, boast. When you boast, you feel proud of yourself and you brag about that. So the vain boast was reduced to nothing. Where is the boast? The boast was when he said, my name is Ozymandias, King of Kings. He is proud of himself and he's showing his greatness. So the possible site of the poem is the city of Thebes. The basic theme of the poem is arrogance is of no use. Are you familiar with the word arrogance? arrogance. Arrogance is a noun, and the adjective is arrogant. When someone is arrogant, he or she is very, very proud. Very, very proud. So the basic theme of the poem is that arrogance is of no use. It's no use being arrogant and proud of yourself, because you will be subject to decay. Pride becomes before a fall. Do you know that pride is one of the 7 deadly sins in Christianity? In Christianity, they speak of 7 sins that take the person to hell, and one of them is pride. Pride is one of the 7 deadly sins. When you feel that you are better than other people, then you are proud, and this is a sin, and it leads to hell. So pride becomes before a fall. If you are proud, your pride will be followed by your fall. Pride leads to fall. And no one has the power to conquer nature and time. No one has the power to conquer nature and time. Guys, you have to keep in mind, as students who study literature for the first time, that the effect of time on human beings, on nature and on beauty is really a key theme. All the time writers speak about the destructiveness of time and the unfriendly effect of time on people, things, nature, beauty, etc. So no matter how powerful you are, how strong you are, you can never defeat time. You can never defeat time. So the poem really revolves around the idea of arrogance, pride, boastfulness of an arrogant king who was named by the Greek people as Ozymandias, and he is the Egyptian king Ramses II. So he becomes a symbol of the futility of power. And I mean by futility, hopelessness. It is no use being powerful and arrogant, because sooner or later you will fall from the top to the bottom. This is one of the facts of life. If someone reaches the top, he is going to go down. So this masterpiece is really about this. It is the fragility of a human power and the destructive effect of time. Fragility is a noun from fragile, and fragile means something that can be easily broken, and human power can be easily broken by time and by other factors that we can find. Okay. Now the poem is an ironic poem because it represents power, legacy, and command that might result from selfishness. But the ironic thing is, the statue, which is now a symbol of decay, survived. But this statue was for a king. Where is the king? He's dead. Can we see him? No. What can we see really? What can we see? We can see a statue, which means that a work of art survives the one who is represented by the work of art. So it is ironic that what remained behind is Shelley's poem and the statue. Okay, so this is our poem for today. It was Ozymandias by Percy Shelley, and it was taken as an example of the Italian sonnet. So this is lecture number 8 of Introduction to Literature, and I want you guys next time to prepare something new, which is what we call metaphysical poetry, What we are going to do next time is first to start with a definition of metaphysical poetry, and then after that we are going to take an example. Metaphysical poetry. Again, if you did not see the word, it's metaphysical poetry, and our example is going to be by a very prominent figure who represents this movement of metaphysical poetry. His name is John Donne. John Donne. And our poem is going to be Go and Catch a Falling Star. Thank you very much for being with me today. Thank you for your patience, attentiveness, and careful watching of the videos. Please keep in touch with me for any questions, for any comments, for any interpretations that you need. Don't hesitate to contact me, and I'm sure you know how to reach me. Thank you very much. See you next time.